As I stood in the kitchen, the aroma of garlic and herbs filled the air, mingling with the sound of laughter echoing from the living room. It was our anniversary, a milestone I had eagerly anticipated, and Mark had promised a special evening. I glanced at the clock. He would be home any minute. "Mom, can I help with anything?" Ethan called from the hallway, his voice brightening the dimly lit kitchen. "Just set the table, sweetheart," I replied, feeling a rush of warmth. Ethan was 15 now, a budding teenager who was more often buried in his phone than engaging with us. I loved that he still wanted to help, even in this small way. As I stirred the pasta sauce, I couldn't help but reminisce about the early days of my marriage with Mark. We were young, wild, and free, filled with dreams and laughter that seemed to echo through every room of our small apartment. I turned off the stove and walked into the living room, where Mark had just walked in, his arms laden with a bouquet of roses and a bottle of wine. "Happy anniversary, my love," he beamed, handing me the flowers. Their sweet fragrance enveloped me like a warm hug. "Thank you. They're beautiful," I exclaimed, feeling a flutter of excitement. I leaned in to give him a quick kiss. "How was work?" Same old, same old," he shrugged, pouring wine into our glasses. "But I couldn't wait to get home to celebrate with you too." Ethan wandered in, a plate in hand. "Wow, Dad, you brought Mom flowers? So cheesy." He rolled his eyes but smiled. And for a moment, I saw the boy he used to be, not the distant teen he had grown into. Mark chuckled. "Just trying to impress your mother, buddy. You'll understand when you're older." Dinner was filled with stories of our past, laughter spilling over as we recounted silly moments from our early relationship. I loved watching Mark's eyes light up as he animatedly described the time he tried to cook dinner for me and nearly set the kitchen on fire. Ethan listened, half interested, fiddling with his phone, but I could see the corners of his mouth twitching upward. As the evening wore on, a subtle change fell over the room. Ethan seemed to retreat back into his shell, his laughter fading as he excused himself to his room. "I'll be back later," he mumbled, his eyes avoiding ours. "Is he okay?" I asked, glancing at Mark, who shrugged, unconcerned. "Just typical teenage stuff," he replied, his voice dismissive. "He'll come around." I felt a pang of worry as Ethan closed his bedroom door, the sound echoing in the silence that followed. I turned back to Mark, forcing a smile. "I just hope he knows he can talk to us about anything." Mark raised his glass. "To family, we're all good here." I clinked my glass against his, but a nagging feeling settled in my stomach. After dinner, while I was cleaning up, I heard Ethan's voice drifting from his room. He was talking to someone on the phone, though I couldn't make out the words. I leaned against the wall, straining to listen. "Yeah, I just don't get it. Everyone has someone. And I feel lost," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. I felt my heart race at the vulnerability in his tone, but I quickly shook my head, trying to dismiss it as typical teenage angst. Later that night, I tucked myself into bed, restless thoughts swirling in my mind. I kept replaying Ethan's conversation, wondering if I should have intervened. He had seemed so distant lately, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing beneath the surface. The morning came too quickly, and as I prepared breakfast, I heard the distinct sound of footsteps approaching. Turning around, I was taken aback as Ethan walked in, his eyes wide with a strange intensity. He stepped closer and, without warning, leaned in to kiss me on the cheek. Good morning, Mom," he said, a slight blush creeping onto his face. "Good morning, sweetheart," I replied, momentarily startled. His gesture felt unexpected, almost intimate, and I wondered if I had misjudged the distance between us. As he grabbed a piece of toast and darted towards the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. "Ethan, wait," I called after him, but he was already out the door, leaving me standing in the kitchen, my heart pounding in my chest. I watched him walk away, a concerned expression settling on my face. Something wasn't right, and I felt an unsettling sense of foreboding as I prepared for the day ahead. I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of the day pressing down on me like an anchor. My phone lay beside me, the screen black and silent, as if it could sense my turmoil. I replayed Ethan's odd behavior in my mind. The kiss on my cheek, the way he had retreated into his room, as if it were a fortress. I needed to talk to someone to untangle this mess of anxiety and confusion, and I knew just the person. Jessica. "Hey, Jess, can we meet?" I texted, my fingers trembling slightly as I pressed send. A moment later, my phone chimed. "Of course. Want to come over, or should I come to you?" "Your place." "I need your wine," I replied, trying to inject some humor into my otherwise heavy heart. Within the hour, I found myself sitting across from Jessica in her cozy living room, surrounded by soft lighting and the comforting scent of vanilla candles. She poured me a generous glass of red wine and settled into the armchair across from me, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "What's going on, Sarah?" she asked, her voice soothing yet probing. "It's Ethan," I said, struggling to find the right words. "He's been acting so strange lately. I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like he's pushing us away." Jessica nodded, her brow furrowing. "Kids go through phases, especially at his age. They're trying to figure themselves out." I took a sip of my wine, the rich flavor flooding my senses but doing little to ease my anxiety. "I get that, but it feels deeper than just a phase. I overheard him talking to a friend the other night, and it sounded like he was questioning everything, his identity, his feelings. It scares me, Jess. Maybe he just needs some space." "Have you tried talking to him?" she suggested, her tone gentle but firm. "I tried, but it's like talking to a wall. He just shuts down," I admitted, frustration bubbling to the surface. "And then there was that kiss. It felt different. I don't know what to make of it." Jessica leaned forward, her elbows resting on her knees. "Okay, let's think this through. What if he's just experimenting? It's normal for kids his age to explore different feelings. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with him. But what if there is?" I countered, my heart racing. "What if he's struggling with something bigger? I can't help but feel that he's hiding something from us." Jessica sighed, her expression softening. "You're an amazing mom, Sarah. Just keep the lines of communication open. He'll come to you when he's ready." As I left Jessica's house, a sense of unease settled over me. I felt the need to talk to Mark, but I knew he'd likely brush my concerns aside. He'd always been the more laid-back parent, and I feared that my worries would only irritate him. When Mark finally walked through the door that evening, I could already sense the tension in the air. He had come home late again, his work schedule increasingly erratic. We settled at the dinner table, the clattering of plates filling the silence between us. "How was your day?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Long meetings and more meetings," he replied, his eyes scanning his plate as if hoping to find an escape within the food. "Did you talk to Ethan at all?" I ventured, my heart pounding. "Not really. He's probably just going through a phase. Boys are weird at his age," Mark said dismissively, shrugging off my concerns like they were nothing. "But, Mark, he kissed me on the cheek this morning," I said, my voice rising slightly. It felt strange. "I'm worried about him." Mark looked up, his brow furrowing. "Sarah, you're overthinking this. He's a teenager. They do weird things. It doesn't mean he's in trouble or anything." I felt the frustration boiling in my chest. "I just don't want him to feel alone. I want to be there for him. I'm sure he'll talk to you when he feels like it." "You're just stressing yourself out over nothing," he replied, his tone growing sharper. Dinner ended in silence, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. As I cleared the table, I felt the divide between us growing wider, the cracks in our communication widening. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both failing Ethan in different ways. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the image of Ethan's journal from my mind. I had seen it peeking out from under his bed earlier, and curiosity gnawed at me. What if it held the answers I desperately sought? With a mix of fear and determination, I decided to look for it. I needed to understand what my son was going through, even if it meant crossing a line I hadn't yet crossed. My heart raced as I ventured into his room, the darkness enveloping me like a shroud. I stood frozen in Ethan's doorway, my heart pounding as I clutched the journal I had found. The pages felt heavy with secrets, each entry a raw glimpse into my son's mind. "Ethan," I called out, my voice trembling slightly. "We need to talk." He turned, his face a mask of anger and hurt. "About what, Mom?" "About how you invaded my privacy." He crossed his arms, a defensive posture that made my stomach twist. I could see the frustration boiling beneath the surface, and it scared me. "I just wanted to understand, honey. I found your journal, and—" "You had no right to read it," he interrupted, his voice rising. "You think you know me, but you don't. You have no idea what I'm going through." I tried to hold back the tears. "I'm trying to help you, Ethan. I'm worried about you. You've been acting distant, and Maybe I want to be distant," he shouted, his fists clenched at his sides. "Maybe I don't want to talk about it. Why can't you just leave me alone?" His words cut deep, leaving me feeling helpless. "Ethan, please. I love you. I just want to understand what's happening in your life. You can talk to me." He shook his head, backing away from me. "You don't get it. You think everything is fine, but it's not. You're not listening." And with that, he stormed out of the room, leaving me standing there, clutching the journal, feeling more lost than ever. Underscore, 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 underscore. Later that evening, I tried to push the conversation from my mind as I prepared dinner. Mark arrived home later than usual, his tie loosened and his brow furrowed. He dropped his briefcase on the kitchen counter and leaned against it, looking weary. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Long," he replied, glancing at the stove. "What's for dinner?" "Just pasta. How about you? Any interesting stories from work?" I tried to pry, hoping to distract myself from my own worries. Mark shrugged, his mind clearly elsewhere. "Just the usual. Laura was particularly chatty today. Seemed like she was trying to get my attention. I felt a flicker of something, but I brushed it aside." "Oh, you know how she is. Always looking for a laugh," I said, attempting to sound casual. "Yeah, I guess." He paused, fiddling with the edge of the counter. "She's interesting, you know." "Interesting." I raised an eyebrow, trying to gauge his tone. "Just different from the others. More engaging, I guess." His words hung in the air, and I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. "Mark, you're not seriously considering?" "No, Sarah, I'm not. It's just a passing thought." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'm tired. Can we not do this right now?" I nodded, feeling the weight of unspoken words settle between us. I wanted to confront him about Ethan, about how he seemed to dismiss my concerns, but I bit my tongue. Underscore, 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 underscore. After dinner, I wandered to the living room, my mind racing. I picked up Ethan's phone from the coffee table, and as I turned it over in my hands, a notification blinked on the screen from an unknown contact. My heart raced as I tapped on it, my breath hitching in my throat. "Hey, are we still on for tomorrow? I can't wait to see you again. Red heart." My stomach dropped. Who was this person? I fought the urge to panic, feeling my trust waver. I knew I should give him privacy, but something inside me screamed to dig deeper. I felt torn between wanting to respect his boundaries and the instinct to protect him from whatever this was. "Sarah, what are you doing?" I whispered to myself, glancing toward Ethan's closed door. I could almost hear his voice, filled with anger and disdain for my meddling. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to know more, that I owed it to him to understand what was truly going on in his life. With trembling fingers, I placed the phone back down. I stared at it, caught in a whirlwind of trust and suspicion. I could almost see the threads of our family unraveling before my eyes, and I didn't know how to mend them. The shadows of betrayal loomed over me, and I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down like a heavy fog. "God, what is happening to us?" I whispered, my heart racing as I contemplated my next move. I took a deep breath as I stood outside the school, the hum of students buzzing around me. I was determined to find out the truth about Ethan, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. My mind raced with images of him sneaking around, hiding a girlfriend from me, someone I had never met, someone who might be leading him down a path I couldn't understand. As I leaned against my car, I scanned the crowd, searching for his familiar face among the throng of teenagers. "Mom," a voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to see Ethan approaching, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked surprised to see me, and for a moment, I considered asking him directly about his mysterious after-school activities. But the knot in my stomach tightened, and I opted for a more discreet approach. "Hey, honey," I said, forcing a smile. "Just thought I'd pick you up today." Ethan raised an eyebrow, skepticism written all over his face. "You never pick me up. Everything okay?" "Of course. Just wanted to spend some time with you," I replied too quickly, my heart racing as I felt the weight of my own deception. As we drove home, the silence in the car felt heavy. I could see him glancing at his phone, likely texting that unknown contact, and it made my skin crawl. What was he hiding? My mind raced with questions, but I knew I had to remain calm. I couldn't push him away further by confronting him without proof. Later that afternoon, I decided to follow him. My heart hammered in my chest as I parked a few blocks away from the school, waiting for him to leave. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows down the street. I watched as he strolled out, his relaxed demeanor doing little to ease my anxiety. He walked with a group of friends, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe it was just teenage antics, and he wasn't hiding anything sinister after all. But as I followed them, my heart sank. They veered off the main street and into a secluded park. I crouched behind a tree, my breath hitching in my throat as I observed them. Ethan was laughing, but there was something unsettling about the way he interacted with his friends. They seemed to egg him on, and I could see him trying to impress them, his laughter rising in volume as he performed silly antics. "Come on, Ethan, do that thing again," one of his friends shouted, and I watched in horror as he began to dance awkwardly, mimicking a popular TikTok trend. The laughter from the group echoed in my ears, but it wasn't the carefree sound of youth that I had hoped for. It felt more like a desperate cry for acceptance, and my heart ached for him. As I strained to hear their conversation, I caught snippets that made my stomach twist. "You're so brave, man. I wouldn't be able to do that in front of everyone," one boy exclaimed while another chimed in. "Yeah, but it's cool. You're like fearless, fearless." The word echoed in my mind, contrasting sharply with how I felt at that moment. He was trying so hard to fit in, to be accepted, and I couldn't help but wonder if he felt alone in a world that seemed to be moving too fast for him. Suddenly, their laughter turned to a more serious tone. "So, have you talked to her yet?" one girl asked, and my heart dropped. "I heard she's into you." "Not yet," Ethan replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I should. What if she doesn't like me back?" "Dude, just go for it. What's the worst that could happen?" the boy urged, and I felt a surge of protectiveness wash over me. I wanted to rush in and save him from this moment of vulnerability, but I knew I had to stay hidden to let him navigate this on his own. Then, As if the universe wanted to shatter my already fragile composure, I overheard a phrase that sent chills down my spine. I heard she's been hanging out with Laura a lot. It's like they're super close. Laura. My mind raced. I thought about Mark's coworker, the same one whose flirty demeanor had made me uneasy. A wave of nausea washed over me as I connected the dots. Was Ethan's confusion about his feelings somehow linked to my husband's increasing friendship with Laura? The implications were too much to bear. As I stood there, frozen behind the tree, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on me. I was lost in a tangled web of misunderstandings and fears, with no clear way out. I watched as Ethan walked away, laughter fading into the distance, leaving me with more questions than answers. My heart ached for the son I didn't fully understand, and the husband who seemed to be drifting away. All I could do was stand there, paralyzed by the reality that our family was on the brink of unraveling. I sat on the edge of Ethan's bed, the faint smell of laundry detergent mingling with the lingering scent of his aftershave. The room was a mess, as usual, with clothes strewn everywhere and a pile of textbooks lying neglected in the corner. I took a deep breath, determined to approach this conversation differently. Ethan, I began softly, can we talk? He looked up from his phone, his expression a mix of annoyance and curiosity. About what? About what's been going on with you? I just want to understand, I said, trying to keep my tone gentle. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he shifted his weight from one foot to the other. It was as if he were preparing to defend himself against an unseen attack. I'm fine, Mom. Really, he replied, his voice tight. Are you? Because I've noticed you've been acting differently. You seem lost, I pressed, hoping to find a crack in his defenses. You can talk to me, you know that, right? His eyes darted away from mine, focusing on the wall. It's just, everything feels confusing. School, friends, me. I don't know where I fit in, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Confusing how? I leaned in closer, sensing a breakthrough. You can tell me anything. He hesitated, chewing on his lower lip. I don't know, Mom. Sometimes I feel like I'm not me. Like I'm supposed to be someone else, but I don't know who that is, he finally admitted, his voice cracking. Ethan, it's okay to feel that way. It's a part of growing up, I said, my heart aching for him. You don't have to have everything figured out right now. He looked at me, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. What if I don't want to be who everyone expects me to be? What if I don't fit into the molds? Then you don't have to, I replied, trying to convey the depth of my understanding. You're allowed to explore who you are. It's part of life. The moment felt fragile, like a thin glass ready to shatter. But what if I disappoint you? He asked, vulnerability etched across his face. You could never disappoint me, Ethan, I reassured him, my voice firm. I just want you to be happy and true to yourself, whatever that looks like. He took a deep breath, as if preparing to finally let something out. I think I might be different, Mom. I've been thinking about boys, and it's just really confusing. I felt as if the ground had shifted beneath me. Different how? He swallowed hard, his gaze searching mine for understanding. Like, I like this guy at school, but what does that mean? I don't want to be weird or anything. You're not weird, Ethan, I reassured him, my heart racing. It's okay to like who you like. Love is love, no matter who it's with. He nodded slowly, relief washing over his features, but I could see the weight of his fears still pressing down on him. At that moment, my phone buzzed on the bedside table, pulling me away from our conversation. I glanced at it, and my heart sank. It was a message from Laura, Mark's coworker. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're all doing well. Who is it? Ethan asked, a hint of suspicion in his voice. Just a friend, I replied too quickly, feeling defensive. We'll talk more about this later. Okay? I stood up, wanting to keep the momentum of our conversation, but also needing to process what I had just learned. As I walked out of his room, I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me. pride for Ethan's bravery, fear for the challenges he would face, and a growing unease about the state of my own marriage. I made my way to the kitchen, where Mark was perched on a stool, scrolling through his phone. "Everything okay?" he asked, glancing up at me. "Yeah, just talking to Ethan about some stuff," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Good. He needs to talk to someone," Mark responded, but there was something in his voice that felt distant, as if he were physically there, but mentally somewhere else. I wanted to reach out, to break down the walls that had been steadily building between us, but a nagging doubt whispered in my mind. Was he truly engaged? Or was he lost in his own world, perhaps even in a world that included Laura? "Mark, can we talk?" I finally said, the words escaping before I could stop them. "Sure. What's up?" He put his phone down, his brow furrowing slightly. "I just feel like we've been disconnected lately. Like we're living parallel lives," I said, my voice trembling slightly. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've been busy, Sarah. Work has been a lot. I get that. But it feels like you're not really here. Like you're somewhere else emotionally." I pressed, hoping to draw him out. "Maybe you're the one who's emotionally unavailable." He shot back, his tone sharp. "You've been so focused on Ethan that it feels like I've been left in the dust." "Excuse me?" "I'm trying to support our son," I exclaimed, frustration bubbling to the surface. "And I'm trying to deal with my own issues, but you don't seem to care," he retorted, his voice rising. We stood there, the air thick with tension, each word a brick in the wall we were building between us. I could feel my heart racing, the weight of unspoken resentments finally breaking free. "Maybe we both need to stop pretending everything is fine," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't keep doing this, Sarah," Mark replied, his expression hardening. "I need space." With that, he turned and stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me standing alone, the silence echoing around me. I felt tears prick at my eyes as I realized just how fragile our marriage had become, the cracks now too wide to ignore. As I stood there, I knew I had to confront not only Ethan's revelations but also the growing distance between Mark and me. I sat at the dining table, my hands trembling slightly as I arranged the plates for our family meeting. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting a muted glow through the kitchen window. I could hear the faint sound of Ethan in his room, the soft thud of his music seeping through the walls, a reminder that beneath his seemingly calm exterior lay a storm of confusion and emotion. Taking a deep breath, I tried to steady my nerves. This was a pivotal moment for us, a chance to address the elephant in the room that had been suffocating our family. Mark entered the kitchen, running a hand through his hair, his expression a mix of curiosity and weariness. "What's all this about, Sarah? You seemed pretty intense earlier." He gestured toward the candles I had lit, casting flickering shadows across the table. "I just think it's time we talked as a family," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "We can't keep ignoring the issues between us. Ethan needs to know we're here for him." Mark nodded, though his eyes betrayed a hint of skepticism. "Okay, but if we're doing this, let's keep it respectful. I don't want to end up in another shouting match." I wanted to reply with a snappy retort, but I swallowed it down. Instead, I focused on the task at hand. "I'll call him," I said resolutely, my heart racing as I walked to Ethan's door. I knocked gently, my voice softening. "Ethan, can you come down? We need to talk." A moment of silence followed before I heard the shuffling of feet. He appeared at the top of the stairs, his expression cautious. "What's up?" he asked, glancing between us. "Just come down, please," I urged, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. As Ethan took his seat at the table, I felt the tension crackle in the air. "So, what's this about?" he asked, crossing his arms defensively. I exchanged a glance with Mark before I steeled myself. "We've noticed you've been different lately. We want to understand what you're going through. It's okay to talk to us." Ethan shifted in his seat, his eyes darting to the floor. "I don't know what you mean," he mumbled, but I could see the storm brewing behind his gaze. "Please, Ethan, we're your parents. You can tell us anything," Mark added, his voice a mix of authority and concern. Taking a deep breath, Ethan finally spoke, his voice trembling slightly. I've been exploring my sexuality, he confessed, his gaze still fixed on the table. I have feelings for someone, and I don't know how to handle it. My heart raced, a mixture of fear and hope flooding over me. That's brave of you to share. Honey, I said, my voice soothing. Can you tell us more? He hesitated, inhaling deeply. I've been seeing someone. It's complicated, and I'm scared about how you'll react. He paused, his expression shifting to one of defiance. But I need to be honest. The person I have feelings for is Laura. The air in the room froze, the gravity of his words hanging heavy between us. My mind raced as I processed what he had just revealed. I glanced at Mark, whose face had gone pale, a mix of shock and betrayal washing over him. Ethan, are you sure? Mark's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Ethan nodded, his eyes fierce yet vulnerable. Yeah, I am. I can't help how I feel. I thought you should know. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. The web of betrayal had ensnared us all, and the threads were tightening. Ethan, this is a lot to process, I stammered, my mind racing to comprehend the implications. Why Laura? How long has this been going on? It started as a friendship, he admitted, his gaze shifting between us. But it became more. I didn't know how to tell you. Mark's expression hardened, a flicker of anger and confusion mingling. You could have chosen anyone else, Ethan. Why her? The hurt in his voice was palpable. Ethan squared his shoulders, a mix of fear and defiance in his eyes. Because she understands me in a way you don't. You're always working, and Mom, you're always worried about me. I needed someone who listens. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the walls closing in on me, the weight of our fractured family pressing down. My phone buzzed on the table, breaking the tension. I glanced down, my heart sinking as I saw Laura's name flash across the screen, a message hinting at secrets yet to be uncovered. Sarah, do you want to read that? Mark asked, his voice raw with emotion. No, not now, I replied, not ready to dive deeper into the chaos that had unfolded. I looked back at Ethan, my heart aching for him. We need to figure this out as a family. But right now, let's take a moment to breathe. As we sat in the thick silence, I realized that our lives were forever changed. The fragile threads of trust that had once held us together were now frayed, and the journey ahead would be anything but easy.